afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the last session, the last panel session of the conference. In Glastonbury terms, it's about 11 p.m. Sunday night, but you've made it. All right, so welcome to this final panel session. My name is David Camp. I'm the moderator for this session. I chair Stronger Together. Stronger Together are delighted to be partnering with AIM Progress and the Institute of Human Rights and Business, organisations that we've worked with for many years to further pursue this cause. I'm also chair of the Association of Labour Providers, a trade association celebrating its 20-year anniversary this year, and who from its very inception was formed to drive good practice in the recruitment and supply of workers into the UK food supply chain. Joined on this last session by Pranay Ray. Welcome from Nepal. It was our hope and intention that Pranay would be able to join us in person, but the visa didn't come through. For Pranay, it's sort of late in the evening, and we also welcome Goretti, Calvo from AgSocio, for whom it's very early in the morning in California. Both Goretti's business and Pranay's business, International Manpower Recruitment, put responsible recruitment at the core of their business. And together with Veronica Ospina, program manager for Stronger Together in the US and Mexico, in this session we're going to focus on the reality of the situation on the ground, what works, what has worked, and recommendations for the future about those levers for change that are going to continue this journey towards responsible recruitment in global supply chains. So we are going to focus on, what works, what hasn't necessarily proved to be so successful, and what we need to drive responsible recruitment. We're going to look at levers such as commercial advantages that go to businesses who do the right thing, which I think is that primary lever that we're all looking for, but also looking at developments in legal and human rights due diligence requirements, in international frameworks of labour standards, certification, industry initiatives and associations. So we're going to look at all of those levers, but I'm going to get going by asking each of our panelists, and I'm going to start with you, Pranay. I'm going to ask our panelists to tell us a little bit more about their business and their motivations for putting responsible recruitment at the core of their business and the benefits they've found, but also to ask each of them the biggest challenges that they've found in implementing responsible recruitment and perhaps how you overcame that. So, Pranay, I'm going to pass over to you now and then on to you, Goretti, before moving on to Veronica. And I'm very much hoping that the technology is going to work. So over to you, Pranay, and then we'll see if it does. So, Pranay, take us away.
Good evening from Nepal. So my name is Pranay. I represent International Manpower Recruitment. IMR, International Manpower Recruitment, IMR is an OTL certified recruitment agency. based in Nepal, and we are also in the advanced stages of IRA certification process. We transitioned from the traditional recruitment model to 100% ethical recruitment in the year 2018. Since then, we've deployed over 15,000 workers and stood among the top agencies in terms of volume among 853 agencies in Nepal. It took us about 2 years to transition from hybrid model to 100% ethical model. And during this time, we experienced a deep sense of discomfort sending workers on traditional model, as by then we had started doing the ethical job as well. So, however, in between, few of our customers in Malaysia back then recommended us and invited us for various ethical recruitment training sessions. And it was a privilege that we had an employer, who we still do, saw potential in us and had faith in us to grant huge volume of recruitment. That boosted our confidence to transition into full ethical recruitment company, which was a motivation and inspiration. Yes, the biggest challenge in ethical recruitment for now is still to turn down those recruitment orders that do not comply to employer pays model, which puts our business at a question of sustainability. And whether we've overcome or not is like we've not necessarily come over of it, because as I said, there is this recruitment orders that do not comply employer pays model. However, we are making conscious effort to diversify our market and sectors, especially in the UK as well, and with an intentional approach to reach out to the large brand conscious employers directly. That's it.
Thanks, Pranay. Goretti, same questions to you.
Hey, good morning from California. As David said, my name is Goretti Calvo. I'm the Human Resources Director for AgSocio and also a partner. AgSocio is an agricultural labor and service provider, and we've been operating in the US, in California, Arizona, and Colorado states for the last 5 years. We not only recruit, but we also employ. So we're also the employer, considered the employer for various clients, which are growers in the agricultural industry. In my various roles in agricultural industry for the past 30 years, I was looking to partner with a company that wanted to focus on building an employment system that focuses on compliance, transparency, best practices, and the ethical treatment of their workforce, just to name a few things. We began by working closely with the recruitment company and partnership called Cierto Global. Cierto's recruitment model provides us with a transparent and secure process of recruiting. Right now, we're doing it in Mexico and Guatemala. Part of their model is establishing community partners in various regions that are vetted, and also they maintain communication with our workers via independent surveys throughout the contract to verify clean recruitment and transparency. We are very involved in that recruitment process. We go to Guatemala, we go to Mexico, we are part of the interview process, we meet the community partners. And it's super important to do that, to be on the ground and actually meeting the workers that we're going to be recruiting. I believe that the benefits of putting responsible recruitment first or among the key core components of our business lets us start the relationship with our workers and our grower clients with trust and respect, foremost. I think one of the biggest challenge that we are consistently fighting against is after we go through our recruitment process, there are people that are trying to take advantage of the trust and respect that we've worked hard to develop, and who turn around and use our name and brand to attempt to charge fees and promise workers seeking an opportunity through them, telling them and promising that they'll get an opportunity. So we work closely with our recruiting partner and on the ground to educate our worker about their rights and who actually hire respected organizations and people that are on the ground and that have the ability to, and we educate them about who has the authority and ability to make a legitimate job offer. We limit referrals. That's always gets you in trouble when you do referrals and they're not fully vetted. You know, somebody knows somebody and then they refer over people. We consistently and constantly inform and remind workers that, you know, there's no fees to solicit work and no one should be charging them for an opportunity.
Great, thanks, Goretti. And Veronica, turning to you. Now, your role in Stronger Together and particularly the focus that you have at the moment is to introduce an American Association of Ag Labour Providers, and an association which has responsible recruitment at the core of its business. How do you think that can support farm labour contractors in the US to overcome the challenges of demonstrating that they actually have good practice and are delivering good practice in their business?
So I think to answer that question, it's probably helpful to just add a very quick, simplified context around U.S. agriculture. And we've heard a little bit about that throughout over the past 2 days. But the reality is that the U.S. is facing really serious labor shortages when it comes to agriculture. The domestic workforce is moving out of the sector for a number of reasons. And the labor shortages and cost of labor is going up significantly. And this is causing, in addition to other things, growers and producers to increasingly rely on labor providers, or you might hear me using this term, FLCs, farm labor contractors and recruiters, to be able to bring work into the United States. The workers that come to the US are primarily from Mexico, I would say about 90%. And these workers, it's really important to highlight that they are essential workers and they are skilled workers. We have a visa program called the H-2A visa program, which I think the number was floated around a few days ago or yesterday, and it's over 300,000 visas being issued for the H-2A visa program, which allows workers to come in on a temporary seasonal basis. So that's one situation. And then the other reality in the US is that there are really great variances in labor laws across the states. I could give some examples, but I don't know we'll have time for that right now. But there's no national standardized recruitment guidance. And there really isn't anywhere for these ag labor providers to go for guidance or for resources, for whatever it might be. I mean, there are some licensing requirements in states that have to be met. There's maybe a handful, I can think of 1 or 2 states that require education, but for the rest of the United States, that's a really large gap. And that leads to a lot of the ag labor providers, and there's thousands of varying sizes, demographics, and different geographical locations, to be just kind of untrained and not have the capacity to necessarily run their business in a way that meets the requirements, the state and federal requirements that we do have. So now going back, tying that back to the association that we are calling the American Association of Ag Labor Providers. That's a lot to say, so we call it AAALP for short. And AAALP was born out of this need to provide professionalization and education for our ag labor providers. And that's really the fundamental offering that AAALP will give to the market. It is, for now, it's by Stronger Together. Eventually, we are hoping that it will be run and managed and by the industry, by farm labor contractors. But as this is a new initiative, it's newly incorporated, we're fully in the launch process. We're basing it in Stronger Together's 14 organizational standards on responsible recruitment and fair labor practices. So education on responsible recruitment really being key for this new association. And I also do want to mention that we have an advisory committee of industry players that have been critical in standing up the association, as well as we've taken learnings from ALP as well. Yeah.
Indeed, thank you. Right, coming back to Goretti and Pranay, the last question, you spoke about your businesses and why you had put responsible recruitment at the core of your business. I'm interested in hearing, and all of us here are interested in hearing more about the market that you operate in, and just explain to us where the market that you compete in is now at with regard to the adoption of responsible recruitment. We're seeing increasing human rights due diligence legislation. We're seeing industry initiatives such as SEDEX incorporating responsible recruitment standards. We're seeing the US Ethical Charter Implementation Program. But what I'm interested to hear is, are we actually seeing this trickling down so that it's changing the practices amongst the industry, amongst your competitors, into a commitment to ethical recruitment? So, Goretti, perhaps you could give us your experience first on that issue. Might wait, Goretti, if you could just start again. I can't hear you yet. I don't think anyone can hear.
Can you hear me now?
There, you're coming through now, yeah.
Okay, great. Is it trickling down, right? Is it coming down to on the ground in terms of commitment to by the employers? I think there are a lot of companies that are starting to implement some policies around ethical recruitment or make commitments, definitely commitments to that from their suppliers, starting to trickle down. So certain clients have sought us out because of our values, because of how we run our business and the focus that we do, not only on ethical recruitment, but ethical employment, because you do have to have both hand in hand. But I think the challenge is going to be continued collaboration among all businesses, all NOGs, different agencies, different advocacy groups, actually, and businesses, governments coming together and advocating and advancing that commitment. I think that companies are starting to realize that this is essential. This is something that you need to be doing, and it is beneficial for your employees, for your clients, and for the overall health and welfare of everyone, including your business. But I think that a continued collaboration is going to be needed, and I think that's when groups like AAALP will come in order to get that through. I'm also in California, part of the board of the California Farm Labor Contractors Association. And that's something that as a board member and for our members, we try to educate and implement the farm labor contractors that we have as members. So I think just continued education and collaboration amongst the industry is what, but we are starting to see it.
Thanks, Goretti. And Pranay, your experience in Nepal?
Well, in terms of adoption of responsible recruitment is concerned, I should say there has been some progress. The positive thing is there is a widespread acknowledgement of the need for responsible recruitment. and it is discussed more widely than in the past. We have been coming across employers who are abiding employee pay model for the first time, and this transition is encouraging. However, having said this, adoption has been uneven across sectors and companies, which means we still need to turn down unethical recruitment drives. So one of the challenge we are facing is that when there are media exposes, research demonstrating malpractices and non-adherence of employee pays model and other labor practices, there is a risk of market being closed down for migrants of that particular nationality. However, we feel that it would be good if clients did not disengage from the sourcing countries and instead considered the responsible recruiter for this recruitment drives. Because the closure of the market hampers all stakeholders, especially the migrant workers, right? Because they lose the job opportunities. This is where we believe that due diligence and responsible recruitment standards can be very useful and handy. So, thank you.
Thanks, Pranay, and that was, I think, a really important point that you just made there, Pranay, which I certainly will take a note of. Veronica, slightly different question for you, but building on that, the business case to adopting responsible recruitment business models needs to be clear and strong for recruiters and labour providers like AgSocio and International Manpower Recruitment. How do you think this can be achieved?
Yeah. So I think that we can talk, the business case is there. There are many reasons, and we've talked about it over the past 2 days as to why responsible recruitment is good for workers, it's good for businesses. But I think we can also, and at least talking about US agriculture, we can talk about the supply and the demand of responsible recruitment and fair labor practices. So since Stronger Together, for example, started in 2019 in the US, we've been working across the labor supply chain with businesses to increase the supply and demand for responsible recruitment. In some cases, that's been increasing the demand by education and awareness raising, and increasing supply by capacity building with businesses. And we are starting to see that growth in the supply and the demand, but it's not a linear process, it's circular. So as we start seeing the demand in the US for responsible recruitment in agriculture, and we're starting to see some businesses that are able to supply workers in a responsible way, then the loop has to be closed. So then businesses need to engage with these ag labor providers that are doing the right thing, that are demonstrating responsible recruitment practices, that are leading the way, that are kind of really don't necessarily have the incentives, business incentives, but they're still willing to get out there and do, take a risk. And so there needs to be some sort of recognition of their efforts. So as we've said, we've got IMP here, AgSocio, Cierto's in the room and spoke earlier. AgSocio and Cierto are Clearview certified. And so it's then saying, we can identify some of these good players. So let's make sure that they continue to be incentivized and that also others see the progress that they're making and that they're leading the way and that they can follow in those footsteps. And then just kind of tying it back to triple ALP and how triple ALP will scale. And I've already mentioned a little bit about scaling the professionalization and through education. And I am going to just kind of read this, and I apologize because it is our business theory of how to scale, and that is that if there are affordable pathways for labor providers to adopt responsible recruitment, and they have access to good training, and they stand out in the market, and then they're supported by growers and businesses, then FLCs will be incentivized to adopt and demonstrate responsible recruitment, which will then create a market that prioritizes responsible recruitment, and ultimately it makes for better working conditions for our agricultural workers, which are at the heart of what we're trying to do.
You read that? It took you about 30 seconds to read it. I completely agree with it, but achieving it is proving quite challenging. But essentially it's an ability to recognize that a business is doing the right thing, and for that business to be recognized by its commercial partners to benefit from that. Okay, going to the recognition part and coming back to you, Goretti and Pranay, both of your businesses, and Veronica spoke about Clearview, but both of your businesses have been through responsible recruitment certification. I'd like to just hear from you what the benefits of certification and the challenges of certification have been to your businesses, and whether you think certification actually is a model that can be rolled out at scale. A certification for responsible recruitment is something that can be rolled out at scale. Goretti, if you could go first on that one, please.
Okay, what are the benefits? I think for us, it's a great way to test our compliance and audit readiness. Having an experienced auditor review our records, field practices, interview workers while the stakes are low, and in a situation under control will show our gaps, or showed our gaps in the process before fines and other problems are on the line. And it's also a strong signal to our team at all levels that we want to run a professional operation, and that we're willing to open the doors to external groups to review and make recommendations for improvements, because you can always improve. Also, it's a signal to our customers that we're making an investment in compliance and systems that protect them from legal, financial, and reputational risk. Now, going to challenges. It can be expensive. And then no customer is going to pay you more for it. You need to get the value for your own business. So another thing, it can be time consuming. There's multiple days to take staff time to prepare and then host the auditor. Sometimes there'll be follow-up work after, but I think the investment in time is worth it. Also, the auditor quality varies, and some are better than others. We've had auditors that work all over the world and who we have learned a lot from. But we've also had auditors who are underprepared and need to be guided, especially here in California. Let's see. Now, the second question, can I drive best practice at scale? I think third-party certifications are a good tool to verify practices in the supply chain. I think if buyers demand these audits, they can drive change through a larger adoption. Looking ahead, what was the second part? What do I believe are the most significant levers? Or no, I think that's it. That's the question. I'm sorry. Did I answer both parts, David?
Same question, Pranay. Your business has been through certification. What were the benefits and challenges to your business? And do you think certification is something that can be rolled out at scale across the industry?
Yes, the benefits and the challenges of certification is, well, one of the benefits is going through the rigorous process as required by the audit proceedings of responsible recruitment certification. It gives us the opportunity to step back and organize our company policies, standards, records better. In addition, certificate by internationally accredited institutions, it lends a credibility in the recruitment landscape, especially among clients who may not be familiar with IMR's work or sourcing from Nepal. And when I talk about the challenges, yes, responsible recruitment certifications have not been recognized as a core indicator in the sourcing strategies of the hiring companies. But we are seeing the change, and hope this will get momentum in the coming days. Yes, responsible recruitment can be scaled up if a critical mass of companies make it a mandatory of the certifications in their due diligence process. It is also important that the stakeholders in the recruitment landscape should support certified companies as to demonstrate this business model a success for other in the recruitment industry to follow.
Thank you. Pranay. I guess it's about 5 years now that reasonably sophisticated responsible recruitment certification schemes have been operating, and what we seem to be seeing is that there's a fairly limited take-up of them. That because the recruitment and supply process is complex, that they are long audits and they're expensive audits, and I'm not seeing a market take-up for the certification system. So, Veronica, sort of a long lead into sort of what other business initiatives, or how can business initiatives and trade associations like the AAALP contribute to a much bigger scaling in countries, particularly in countries where there's limited legislation in this space. But there are market initiatives like the Ethical Charter. So how can other initiatives help?
So I think with government and advocacy groups, they have such an important role to play in kind of pulling out issues, identifying situations, negative situations, addressing unscrupulous operators. I mean, I've talked a little bit about, maybe operators that don't have the capacity or haven't been educated in, this and that. But of course, there are unscrupulous operators out there that are doing things intentionally in a way that is bad for workers. And so that's kind of the role of government and advocacy groups to a degree. The kind of enforcement when there are violations, but that's very limited in the US. So I think the role of business initiatives like ESIP, which you've mentioned, or Stronger Togethers and our collaborative programs, or what we're trying to do with AAALP, the difference is that we're not trying to look for the bad actors, or we're trying to really identify those that want to do right by their business and by workers. So it's a little bit more of a carrot approach than a stick approach. And I think that that's what we're seeing, at least within the US agricultural industry, these programs and initiatives that are more about building the capacity of the labor providers, really helping them try to understand, what they have to comply in, what is beyond compliance. So for AAALP, it is hopefully going to be a go-to place for all of these questions, for the capacity, for the training, But it's also going to be a place that will offer self-assessments. We know that that's not the solution, but it will have also verification options, and for those that really kind of want to go to that gold standard, clear view. So we're going to be offering a number, kind of many service levels for the members. I mean, there will be minimum requirements to become a member that they have to adhere to, and things that they will have to demonstrate. But we are, in a way, trying to kind of level everyone up to at least have some baseline that doesn't exist right now, with the exception of a couple of states that we've talked about, and California, for example, being one of them. So we hope that this will be a catalyst for motivating and attracting really the labor providers that want to stand out in the market and that are looking for guidance. They're looking for networks, and hopefully this will also eventually, businesses will look to AAALP and say, well, who are your members? And if you are a member of AAALP, you've been able to demonstrate, this level of compliance and commitment to responsible recruitment and fair labor practices, and and it's a way for businesses to know who these actors are that are committed to responsible recruitment and to their workforce.
Thanks, Veronica. Goretti and Pranay, I'm going to stay in this theme, and I'm going to stay looking to the future, and I'm going to ask you both, starting with Goretti, sort of looking at the future in the market that you operate in. What do you believe are going to be the most significant levers and the most critical drivers so that there are more and more and more businesses demanding responsible recruitment, and so many more businesses who are putting responsible recruitment as their way of doing business in the industry you work in? What are going to be the biggest things that are going to have to happen to drive that?
Who do you want to go first? I'll go.
Goretti, you first, please.
Thank you. We think that greater awareness of the problem by the people in the supply chain is very necessary. If you look at what the industry has accomplished, being the ag industry, with food safety, you can see how field practices could be impacted when something is a priority for buyers and brands. That's going to be the driving force. So that'd be my answer.
In the market that you compete in, what do you believe are the most significant levers and the critical drivers that are going to make responsible recruitment more scaled and more widely embedded amongst your competitors and in the industry that you work in?
Are you asking me, right?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. There was this audio problem in between, but that's okay now. Yes. Like I said earlier on, we have come across employers that are increasingly adopting employer-based model, which is very encouraging. We discuss about good practices and platforms such as today that allows stakeholders engagement and dialogues that help. These policies and dialogues that are happening at headquarter level should actually translate to the implementation at forum member companies, supply chain players, and franchisee in the destination countries where the migrants work. So basically meaning the policies and standards of ethical recruitment should be implemented at destination countries where migrants work, and not just at the headquarter level. Thank you.
One last question before we see if there are any other questions that have come through. So there are many supply chain partners in the room here and many more online. And this may be, and this is probably a repeat of something you've already said before, but I want one message to come out from each of you to the supply chain. What is the one message that you would convey to the supply chain partners about what they can do to best support uptake of responsible recruitment at scale? So a nice clear point. Goretti, I'm going to go with you first.
Thank you, David. I think that the message is you should understand the risk factors with agricultural labor and do some basic due diligence. You should influence customers asking the right questions that make operators question who they are for labor or how they operate. FLCs, farm labor contractors or labor providers, are the primary method of employment for ag workers in California and other states. Do you know who your FLCs are in your supply chain? Are they licensed? Are they insured? If they use the H-2A or the H-2B visa programs, how do they recruit? What does their HR and housing support program look like? What kind of vehicles are used to transport workers, and are they safe? Those are the kind of things, and that's the message that I would like to present. Thank you.
Your one message?
I think there's some audio, Pranay.
Pranay,
Yes,
what would be the one message that you would like to give to your supply chain partners to convey how they can best support uptake of responsible recruitment at scale?
Well, what I'd like to add here is responsible recruitment allows for more space to maximize the benefits of migration. And with that, we've taken an advantage by taking our responsible recruitment a step further, by making ethical recruitment more accessible to the poorest, such as marginalized communities in Nepal, or even recruiting earthquake victims to help them recover from the devastation. So my message would be, like, I would urge from international manpower recruitment to all our clients and supply companies to work with us to redefine the social responsibility by designing recruitment drives that can help elevate poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranay. That's a very powerful point. That's a very new and interesting concept for me. Veronica, what message would you give?
I think this ties maybe a little bit to what Goretti has already said about asking questions. But it's, and this has been said in a couple of sessions already, but just communication, communicate up and down your supply chain, communicate your commitments. I mean, if you're committed to responsible recruitment, put that front and center. You know, if you're committed to human rights, put that front and center, up and down the supply chain. You know, communicate your expectations, and communicate those market signals. So going back to the supply and demand, you know, close the loop and have suppliers have those clear market signals to the businesses that are trying to lead the way. And also we've all said collaboration, but I have to say it again because collaboration really is communication. It leads to consistency. It can only really have positive outcomes if it's done in the right spirit.
Fabulous. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Pranay. Thank you, Goretti. I'm going to pass over to questions now, if we have any. There always seems to be questions, so...
Yes, you have questions.
Good.
So would you like to have them all at once or at different rounds?
Pick the best one first.
Okay, well, they're all good.
All right.
So there's one, so the idea of getting rid of brokers has been floated by some as the way for responsible recruitment to happen.
Yeah.
So, but what can the industry itself do to collaborate to improve the reputation of the industry? So that's one interesting one that came. And the other one is, we ended yesterday with a panel on women migrant workers. So what can recruiters do to make sure that in the process of recruitment, the rights of women migrant workers are better protected?
Great. Going to take that as two questions.
Okay.
Going to take the second one first.
Okay.
Interested to hear Pranay and Goretti, whether that is something that you already do, which is how do you protect the rights of women workers, whether you put a gender lens on your recruitment process, and if not, whether that's something that you might consider in the future. So a question in three parts for you. I'll start with Goretti.
So we've made a commitment to, because most employers, most farm labor contractors do have a gender lens. They like to recruit men first and foremost and majority, but we've made a commitment to diversify that. It is complicated with the housing requirements, finding housing suitable for the health and welfare and safety of all genders. And with the regulations surrounding it, but we managed and we're committed to scaling up the diversification of gender. How do we protect our rights? It starts from the very beginning, right? Responsible recruitment. Our partners they have many human rights advocates in their businesses and incorporated in their business and in their model. So we work with them closely, and but it extends into the actual employment, right? Putting together our best practices, putting together a leadership team that includes both genders, diversified in many different job skills. So we have a leadership team that shows the dynamic and the diversification of our workforce, giving them a voice, meeting with them on a regular basis, and following through with those meetings and what comes out of them. So that's what we've tried to do, and we're doing now.
Pranay?
When we are talking about women migrants, what we got to be mindful of the fact is, unlike men, the reason that a woman would migrate would be of many concerns. Especially, they could be running away from the marriage. They could be running away from other reasons as to on the path that they choose to migrate. So, having to when we know of all these facts, we are more mindful of the fact that there could be many multi-layer reasons of a lady getting migrated to the foreign country. So in that sense, we are very particular by having to do our SAQ on the part of after post-deployment of the migrants in certain particular companies, and we also make it a point that during the process of due diligence, we make it a point to have an on-site visit as to check whether the facilities for female migrant workers are being the rights are reserved and the rights are being protected or not.
Thank you, Pranay. The second question I'm going to ask you to think about, Veronica, more than just think about. I'm going to ask you to give your answer. It's the suggestion was one of the proposals was let's outlaw labour brokers. That's one option. Or the other proposal was, if not, how do you improve the standards in those businesses? So pretty straightforward question, if you could.
Yeah, I think it's a, I mean, this is not a new proposal in U.S. ag. You know, there are, you know, schools of thought that say, you know, get rid of ag labor providers, farm labor, cut out the middle person. That reduces, you know, layers. It increases transparency. Let's do this direct hire. Maybe in an ideal world that would work. But as we, you know, mentioned before, domestic labor is not available in the U.S. And so we are relying on migrant workers for our food production, and producers, farmers are not in the business of recruiting. And the H-2A visa system is extremely complex. And so there just isn't that capacity. That's just not a reality. And as the H-2A visa program grows and there's a more reliance on migrant labor, it's just not a reality that the labor broker can be cut out for everyone. I mean, there are some that do engage in direct hire. So the solution is due diligence, work with responsible labor providers and recruiters, and then you will, you know, mitigate those risks.
Certainly, my experience is that they exist in every market, in every country, even when they're outlawed. And the standards tend to be worse when you are not even legitimately allowed to have that business model, because it's completely uncontrolled, it's completely unregulated, and it's completely under the
Didn't have a criminal
element. Yeah, absolutely. So professionalization, regularization, training, standards, incorporating within the standards in supply chain due diligence is, in my experience, the only way that you improve standards. And as both our guests have said, recognition of those businesses that do it well. I think we've got time for one more question.
David, can I add something real quick to that last question?
Perfect.
Broker?
So the last question is also a pat for Pranay for the work that he has done from the audience. And I think that follows up quite well with what you said about recognition, you know, so we can pull each other up in the industry. And the next one is about Malaysia's upcoming bar on overseas recruitment. And perhaps, Pranay, you can talk to us about, do you see that as impacting your business? Is that a market you're exploring or send to? And yes.
Pranay, did you hear that?
I didn't quite get it. Would you repeat the question, please?
We just need a second for your audio to come out over here.
Mm-hmm. May I get the question again, please?
Was firstly a recognition for yourself and for those businesses from the room and from the person providing the question about businesses such as yours that do put ethical recruitment, responsible recruitment at that core. So that was the opening, but it was also a question about how the forthcoming bar in Malaysia on overseas recruitment, how you think that will impact your business and indeed wider recruitment from Nepal.
Yes, I should say the ban of or the suspension of migrant intake in Malaysia has hit us very hard. I must tell you the truth. And that's one of the reasons that we are looking for diversifying our business, as I said earlier on. And we are looking for opportunities. We are looking at other corridors to sustain ourselves. And that is also one of the reasons that I told in one of my answers to the questions, that the policies and then the policies of ethical recruitment should not be on the headquarter level, but on the destination countries where the migrants work. It could be in different various corridors. So yes, it has affected, and then we are looking at corridors. We are looking for opportunities by having to explore to some of the major employers in the UK and in the Middle East as well.
Couple of last comments. Firstly, to thank Pranay and Goretti for having this both at the extremes of your day. It's very much appreciated. Your contribution is very much valued. And thank you, Veronica, for your contributions as well. I thought as you got older, you became more mellow and more patient. You don't. You become more impatient because you have less time. And time becomes a very valuable commodity, and you appreciate it. And I get frustrated about the lack of progress, about the slowness of progress. But then I take a reflection, and I think about when I started working in this space. The term responsible recruitment didn't even exist. It wasn't a term that was ever used. And now the understanding of responsible recruitment, the understanding of the need to address that to achieve decent human rights due diligence management in supply chains is centre and core to the work we do. We've got a long, long way to go. We all know that. I think we now have really sound foundations. The drivers for change are coming, and I think we will see an acceleration towards due diligence over the coming years. If we don't, I'm going to blame all of you lot, okay? All right, so thank you for everything. I am positive for the future. We will continue to improve, and thank you for organisations such as the IHRB for making terms like the employer pays principle something that we all understand. Thank you for SEDEX for putting it into their labour standards. I know that will make a significant change. Thank you for all of you, indeed, who contribute to that change. Thank you.
Thank you.